Hi guys, how are you doing today? Are you ready for new stories? I have 4 today. Let's go to the first crazy one. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My ex and I were married for 14 years, but had been dating for 11 years prior to getting married. 8 years ago, I found out he was having numerous affairs. I stayed because I believed him when he said he'd get sex addiction counseling, and that I paid more attention to my father, who had stage 4 cancer, than I did to him, so it was my fault. Then, 2 years ago, I found out he was cheating on me with a woman, now 24 female, he later hired as his assistant. I filed for divorce, and I learned during divorce proceedings that his mistress was heavily pregnant and about to give birth, which he exploited to dock as much child support obligation to me as he could. Despite him moving in with his mistress, without making any effort to explain to our daughter why her parents weren't going to be together anymore, and continuously finding ways to lower his already lowered financial obligations to our daughter. He told me that if I had never left him, we would have been together and he would have never been uprooted from his daughter and home. Every time he did visitation with our daughter, he implied that his divorce was all my decision and that he wanted to see her every day. My daughter has been having trouble in school because of this. Her dad didn't call or send gifts for Christmas or her birthday. When she got upset, my mom berated me and said I had to send her gifts and say they were from her father. Then she went over my head and brought a present to me and put me on the spot where I could only say that this extra one is from her dad. My daughter now has her dad's phone number, but he always says he is sick or busy. She has been over to her dad's house, but his new wife accused her of being too unclean to be around her half-brother and leaves the house whenever she's around. My ex-husband now credits his new wife, who he married a week after our divorce was done, with being the reason he now doesn't drink and lives a happy, spiritual, and healthy lifestyle. His social media is full of doting pictures of him and his new wife and son. He finally called me and said he and his new wife have been doing therapy, and he realized that he hadn't been happy living the life he lived from 26 to 50 with me, and he turned to addictive behavior because he felt smothered by my expectations. He said that he and his wife feel that a lot of things from his past are too triggering, and the presence of our moody daughter was causing tension in the family. He said that it's really tough to have her around, and a lot of emotions about me pushing him away through divorce came out. Bottom line was, he didn't feel comfortable doing regular visitations, and he needed to focus on the progress he and his wife had made, because he still resents me for pushing him away. He said I needed to be the one to phrase this to our daughter. What do I do? My daughter continues to think I'm somehow keeping her dad away. My mom continues to say I should just continue playing the charade that a few wrapped birthday presents came from dad, even though it does not. I don't know how to phrase this so my daughter comes out healthy. I'm running out of excuses I make for my ex about why he can't see my daughter, or why her stepmother is so angry when she's around the house. OP needs to stop being a doormat to that awful man, at least for her daughter. He cheated. That was a choice. He lied and then blamed OP for it, because OP was busy with her father who had cancer. He is the lowest of the low. If OP doesn't step up and tell her daughter the truth, then nobody will. She will just assume whatever she thinks is the truth or being told by others. Judging by OP's ex, he will make it worse by spouting lies. OP's mom is wrong, and shame on her for not supporting OP. OP needs to tell her daughter the truth and stop letting her live a lie. It will hurt, sure, but it will hurt more later when she lived this long lie. I was in a relationship with my ex for 7 years, and it ended 4 years ago. She was getting along with my parents, especially mother, and sisters really well, and she was even living with us during our studies. I understand that after living with her for years, and her being a part of our family for so long, they are fond of her. However, she dumped me. She felt she outgrew our relationship and felt too young to commit forever, and it hurts me a lot. Despite the fact that I suffered a lot when she left me, they still like her. A year ago, I met my current girlfriend, and she is amazing. She helped me a lot to get over issues I still had from my previous relationship. I'm finally happy again. The problem is, my family is still openly fond of my ex, and they are not hiding it at all. Few examples. Pictures including her postcards, etc., all over my parents' flat. Mixing info about my girlfriend and my ex repeatedly. It is so cool that you do swimming. She doesn't, but my ex did. Stories including my ex, or even about her. Oh, it was so good that ex's mom was a cook. We loved to go there to eat, etc. They also tell stories mentioning that she was great, pretty, similar to my girlfriend in some regards. It is affecting my girlfriend a lot. At the beginning, she didn't complain, and she always told me she understood they cared about my ex. But after a few months, her mood got worse anytime she met my family, even if they didn't say anything. She told me she feels like a replacement for my ex, as if there was a ghost between us all. I told her I would talk to them, but she said that even if they stopped talking about her now, she would always feel it was only because I asked them to. She says she feels deeply uncomfortable with them now, even when they do nothing wrong. I think it is important to add that my ex-girlfriend is really not jealous generally, and even talked to me about my ex a lot when I needed to vent. So I think my family is wrong here. But I know if I tell them something, they will defend themselves. My ex was part of their lives for so long. And even if they stopped, my girlfriend would still be uncomfortable. What can I do? OP needs to start calling them out, each and every time it happens. And OP should not do it by throwing his girlfriend under the bus and saying, girlfriend doesn't like it, or girlfriend finds it uncomfortable. That'll just make them resent OP's girlfriend more. OP needs to own this. OP needs to tell them it makes him uncomfortable, that he finds it disrespectful to him that they keep bringing her up, that he doesn't like it, each and every time, loudly and clearly. My fiancé, male 34, and I, female 33, have been dating for 3 years and living together for 1. We've been loosely saving to buy a house, and about 2 weeks ago, we decided to sit through our finances and try to draw an actual plan to see if we could save money more consistently and whatnot. As expected, we had a few disagreements on what expenses we should cut, but nothing too big, until he found out I pay for my parents' healthcare insurance. And we have been fighting about it non-stop since then. His main point is that my parents don't need it, since our country has universal healthcare. And if they wanted insurance, they could pay it themselves. Although this is true, the public healthcare system is known for being overcrowded, and it can take months until you see a doctor. My dad has diabetes and a heart condition, and I'm afraid he won't get the help he needs fast enough. It's also true they could pay for it. But not without some sacrifice. They are very middle class. And they probably wouldn't anyway, because my dad is the stoic type. His refusal to get insurance was the reason me and my brother decided to pay for it ourselves. Fiancé also argues that it's unfair I spend so much money on them when we're trying to save everything we can for the house, and he's cutting all of his extra expenses. But the fact is that even with the insurance, I'm still saving more than him because I earn more. He thinks that if I direct this money to our savings, we could buy our house faster and with less sacrifice, which means he could keep some of the extra money he's been putting on the house. I'd rather wait longer if I have to, if it means I can assure better care for my parents if they need it. Plus, that way I'll be paying for more than 2/3 of the house, and I already pay for most of our rent. He thinks I'm being selfish. I think he's being selfish. But what we've been arguing mostly about is he says my parents are taking advantage of me, that they are and controlling of my money, and that I can't start a new family if I don't let go of them and cut the cord. I admit I'm close to my parents. I call them every couple of days, and I used to see them regularly before the pandemic, which fiancé says it proves I'm emotionally dependent on them. But they hardly ask me for money, and I don't pay for anything else except an occasional dinner. He's been sending me articles about helicopter parents, and even brought up the time I lived with them as an adult for 2 years. They took me in when I had a major setback at 25 years old and lost my job. When I tell him I don't see it that way, he keeps bringing up the fog, which apparently is the inability of A people to see the acts of the A as such. My brother is on my side, but his friends say he's right. I was sure about this, but I don't know anymore. I admit he has some points. Is the fact that my parents don't need the money, but I still feel like they do, a sign of A? He's also been pointing to some situations where I reached to them for advice or help as proof that I'm not grown up enough, or even suggested I go non-contact for a while, not forever. I won't, but I'm starting to feel less inclined to talk to my parents after our arguments. Has anyone been in a situation like this? What did you do? I think he sees financial A in OP's parents' behavior, because he is a financial A. He is taking advantage of OP, the same way cheaters always suspect their significant other of cheating. It's projection. OP sounds like a loving daughter who is close to and takes care of her parents in a really emotionally healthy way. The fact that he doesn't see it that way means he's the opposite, emotionally unhealthy. Update. I tried to solve the old apartment issue first, because as some people guessed, I was still paying for it, mostly to avoid the conversation. I texted him asking for a good time to go over and pick up my stuff and talk about financial arrangements. He called me immediately and asked if I was breaking up with him, like, you did it already. So we started arguing over the phone until he suggested I come over so we could settle things properly. So I went, by myself. Such a good idea. Surprising nobody, talking in person didn't change anything, and we kept fighting just the same. Except he was becoming more and more aggressive because I was standing my ground on us breaking up. He said some pretty harsh and offensive things, which he never did before, and it hurt but only confirmed my decision. Until he said he had talked to my brother about us, and that totally set me off. He said my brother agreed with him, that my parents were overbearing, and even agreed to back off for a while to let me grow up. I guess he thought that having my brother on his side would convince me he was right. It was such an obvious lie. But I was suddenly filled with utter tea that my brother shared this opinion about me, or would want to get away from me, or I don't know. I knew it wasn't true, but at the same time, the mere idea of a world where this would happen completely shattered me. I don't know. Anyway, I started hyperventilating while he was talking, and since I was unable to respond, he just went on and on about how things were going to work from now on, and worse things I don't want to repeat. At some point, I just disassociated, like I used to when I was a kid and the A got really bad, and can't remember almost anything after that. All I remember was pressing the phone to my face really hard. Apparently, I called sister-in-law at her work and didn't say anything, so she sent my brother to check on me, and he took me to the hospital. I'm getting better now, but I'm having a lot of PTSD episodes. Mostly, I'm having a hard time accepting how he could be so manipulative, and I never knew. My brother and sister-in-law think he set me off on purpose, as he knew my past and all my triggers. I don't want that to be true, but I have a flash of memory where I'm crawling away from him because I couldn't speak, and he just sort of laughed and kept talking. I know memories from disassociative episodes can't be trusted, though. I finally went to the older apartment over the weekend again, with my brother and his friends, and took everything that's mine. My ex was nowhere to be seen, and it looked like he hadn't been over in a while. This week I'll talk to the landlord about the rent, and my brother is helping me deal with our joint account. We don't have anything else connecting us, so I think that's it. I've been on medication, which I hate, but I like to think I've overcome worse scenarios. I guess at the end, my ex had a point about me being emotionally dependent on my family. He just missed the target. I, female 26, lost mom at 11. My dad remarried my stepmom. That's when I met my stepbrother Austin, 31. My stepmom was civil with me, but Austin's always treated me poorly. Growing up with him was not easy. He always disrespected me and stalked on boundaries. I remember when I first met him, he called me the housemaid, and my stepmom barely did anything. He always said I'm delusional to think that he'd see me as a sister, and claimed that I only made amends with him when I realized he and his mom weren't going anywhere. He hates my dad's side of the family, and after he was kicked out by my dad on Thanksgiving for disrespecting them, Austin demanded the whole family, dad, aunts, grandparents, apologize to him, and they did, just to keep the peace. He then started coming over saying no one can kick him out of his mother's house. But the house is my dad's. I got busy with my husband's condition. He has a heart condition that's really difficult to manage. He had a surgery 14 months ago, but his health is now better. Austin ignored my husband, always throws his condition in his face like it's his fault. Austin made comments saying he was surprised we had a marriage before a funeral, that we shouldn't have kids with a sick parent. I ignored him. I'm currently pregnant, and my husband is so happy. Austin is in law enforcement, so whenever he's on shift, I take the chance to visit my dad and have a peaceful dinner. Someday, we visited my dad but found Austin there. We decided to announce since my dad insisted. My dad and stepmom said congratulations, but Austin said, "Are you sure?" I was dumbfounded. He then proceeded to say that he heard people with chronic conditions struggle with having kids. Me and my husband were shocked by what he was implying. Then my husband got up and walked out. I yelled at him, and he yelled back, telling me to start looking for the real dad to pay child support before my husband finds out the truth. I was so livid my dad and stepmom did nothing. I called him a jerk and I left after arguing with him and his mom. My husband was crying when we got home. Stepmom sent a text, defended him, saying I massively overreacted and that I should have ignored him. He didn't know what he was saying. She told me to let it go for the sake of the family and begged me not to make my dad's relationship with Austin worse. My dad demanded Austin apologizes, and my stepmom is telling me to forgive him so we can let this go. But I refused. OP is not an a-hole. This babying of Austin has gone on long enough, and if OP's dad wants a relationship with his grandkid, he's going to have to man up and put Austin in his place permanently.